Hi, everybody. Most of the plants I'll be showing are cacti and succulents, because those are some of the easiest to take care of as long as you have some bright light, but not all. Um, so this is our study, which is kind of the plant room in the winter for some plants that are normally outside in the summer. Okay, the first plant, you probably have seen these everywhere. It's the ZZ plant. So it's this large one here in this red container. And you see these in the malls everywhere because they're so easy to take care of. And they do like some bright light, but they'll take, almost total shade and be fine. What it is, it's underneath, it's like a big giant potato, a big tuber under there. And the stems come up from the tuber and they unfurl. And this is a newer stem here that's kind of greener. And they basically, once they unfurl with the leaves, that's it, and they'll stay on the plant. Oh, some of these stems are probably maybe 5 years old, and eventually they die off and more come. But this one you just put in a pot, give it a little room, regular soil with some drainage. If you watered it, every 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks, you'd be fine. If you forget, it'll be fine also. So this one's one of the almost foolproof. The one thing you don't do is overwater it. That's probably about the only way you can ever kill one of these. The next are they're orchid cactus, and they're not a Christmas cactus, but they're kind of similar. So somebody's going to talk about Christmas cactus later, and you can find out how to care for them there. On the original slide that was shared, the flowers on these are really huge. They're like 3 or 4 inches in diameter. They flower in the summer. There's one back there. There's one here. What I do is I hang these outside on the deck, kind of in a shaded area. These are jungle cacti, so they definitely don't like a lot of direct sun on them. They'll take, dappled shade, but really not any sun or they'll burn. And again, they don't take a lot of water. They do need some, but they're similar to the Christmas cactus, which will get talked about later. The next one is a euphorbia. Now, some of you might be growing euphorbia outside. This one is Euphorbia trigonia. It's called an African milk tree because it's not hardy outside. But you can see some of the stems, the older stems, kind of triangular shaped. Then it grows leaves on it. No real flowers. These will get really large. This plant here is kind of a small piece of a much larger plant that I used to have, but it would get like 8 feet tall and flop over. What's nice about these, if you want to propagate them, if you take a stem cutting, like if you cut the stem here, you basically let the stem sit out for 2 or 3 days until it calluses over. Then you stick it in the soil and it'll start growing eventually. So they're really easy to propagate. This one, the sap is kind of milky and it is a little bit toxic. Some people react to it, and you certainly wouldn't want, a dog or cat to eat it, but it's not like deadly poisonous, but you don't want people nibbling on it either. Okay, this is one, it looks sort of scraggly. It's a night blooming cereus. You might have heard of that. It's the plant where the flower opens and closes in one night, and they're really fragrant. And there was a picture of that on the slide. And again, this is kind of a succulent. It doesn't take a lot of water. Totally trivial to propagate. You can see this stem here. This is a leaf, and then the stem comes off. You would just cut that and stick that in the soil, and it would just sit there for a while and start growing. We give these away because you can see it's growing up in here. It'll grow 2-3 feet this winter, so we have to cut it back. We bring it outside. But the flowers, when you get it to flower, they're really just amazing. Before I leave here, I'll just show you a couple orchid flowers. The orchids are kind of fussy, but here's one that's flowering now. Here's another one that's flowering. This one's chocolate. This is what's called chocolate because it actually smells like chocolate. And here's another one that's flowered for the first time. The phalaenopsis are actually fairly easy. Those were not. So let me walk over here. So this is a lot of these now are going to be cacti and succulents. They stay in the kitchen window here, which is really nice and bright and sunny right now. The first two of these are Haworthia. There are two different kinds. This is a zebra haworthia. You may have seen one of these. Has a nice coloration there. And this other one is called Haworthia correctata, and it has these really long stems on there. They'll get even longer than this. Both of these are they're succulents. They don't need a lot of water. They do need, drainage. These like bright light. These Haworthia don't like direct sunlight, but they do like a fair amount of light and pretty good drainage. And again, this stem here, if I would cut that off, break that off, if it got too long, and just stick it back in the soil, that's going to start growing again in a little while. So those are really easy to propagate. These next two are kalanchoes. This one, I don't know the types. This one, if you've ever been down to the botanical gardens, there's a huge one of these growing in their desert room. And again, this one does like a lot of sun, and it's in a pot where the drainage is pretty good. And again, these are really easy to propagate because when they grow, this thing, if it was outside, it could grow 10 or 15 feet tall if it was in a temperate environment. But the way it grows is all the leaves tend to fall off the lower stem and it starts looking kind of ugly. So if I would cut this stem, just break that stem off, stick the top in the soil, and then it'll start growing from where you cut it off, and the one that you put in is growing. So you can propagate it pretty easily that way. Here's another type. The one down here, same idea. The leaves here are nice and fuzzy. It's no real flowers on it, or I haven't gotten mine to flower. But again, it's pretty easy as long as it has a lot of light. You're just fine on that. Okay, these are some agaves that are not really hardy here. These go out on the deck in the summer, but then I have to bring them in the winter. And these do like full sun. This one here is Agave filifera. As you can see, it has these little filaments on it. Here's one different kind here, and this one, I like the shape of this one. This is desert diamond, which is kind of a nice looking plant. All these are really, really sharp, so you have to be careful working with them. And they probably are going to get fairly big. I've repotted them over the last 2 years. I don't know how big they'll get, but they're already starting to fill up these pots. And here's just a regular cactus, which also goes, in the sun. This was actually almost doubled in size in the last year, so that's done pretty well. But all these cacti and succulents, they're going here in the sun. If the blue, did I show the blue agave? Somebody chime in? I might not have. Let me walk back here real quick. This is another agave. This is a blue agave, which has got a nice blue color. This one does not like a lot of full sun. It'll take some morning sun. I had this out in the sun and it got sun scorch on it. So then I moved it and it did better. So these blue ones, it's kind of also similar to the blue hosta. They tend to not like, a lot of direct sun in the afternoon either because they'll scorch. But again, this one, you can see down here, there's some little pups growing in there. So I think maybe this spring I may take the whole thing out and take some of those out and put them in your pots and either give them away or just let them grow elsewhere. Let's see. I've got two more on my list, but I can quickly go through some others. This is another succulent. I don't know the exact name is. It's not a string of pearls, but it's kind of similar. You can see that it's got these little leaves coming off of the stem. And this one actually was restarted a year ago. These stems got like 3 feet long. Again, it's another one. It's really easy to propagate. You just clip this off, strip some leaves off, put the stem in the ground, in the pot, and that'll continue to grow. And then you'll get more off of the same stem that you just cut. And finally, we have clivia, which this can take a little more shade. Hopefully you've seen these. These have the really beautiful orange and yellow flowers. They usually flower late spring, summer. It doesn't take a lot of water. Right now, it's not using any water at all because it's kind of dormant in the winter. And these can stay pot bound for a while also to get them to flower. So this is just a quick look. We've got plants everywhere here. These stay in. These are house plants. But those are easy. The succulents and the cacti are generally some of the easiest to grow as long as you have light, because they don't really need a lot of water.